Apologies, video cut out because I ran out of storage for some reason, so I'll take up where we left off here. Changing line 1 of Hexagram 17 following. Finishing reading a book of 5 rings. It says, after that I studied morning and evening searching for the principle and came to realize the way of strategy when I was 50. James Dekorne breaks changing line 1 down into one possible succinct definition. Change your focus, marshal your forces, and seek wider horizons. And changing line 4 of Hexagram 17 following. Leg. The fourth line dynamic shows us one followed and obtaining adherence. Though he is firm and correct, there will be evil. If he is sincere, however, in his course, and make that evident, into what error will he fall? Wilhelm/Baines. Following creed, success. Perseverance brings misfortune. To go one's way with sincerity brings clarity. How could there be blame in this? Blofeld. Following someone with an ulterior motive, persisting in this course would bring misfortune. But, if as he goes his way he makes sincerity his beacon, what harm can come to him? Lu. Success is gained by following, but to continue brings misfortune. Going the correct way leads to glory, or brightness. How can there be blame? Ritzema/Karcher. Following, possessing, catching, trial, pitfall, possessing conformity, locating in Tao uses brightening. Wherefore faulty? Possessing conformity is inner and outer are in accord. Confidence of the spirits has been captured. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. He is followed and obtains adherence. According to the idea of the hexagram, this is evil. He is sincere in his course, showing his intelligence and leading to achievement. Wilhelm/Baines. This bodes misfortune. This brings clear-sighted deeds. Blofeld. Following others with ulterior motives is surely evil, whereas sincerity along the way produces brilliant results. Ritzema/Karcher. One's righteousness, pitfall indeed, brightening, achieving indeed. Cleary too. When following gains, the meaning is inauspicious. Having faith in the way, the understanding is successful. Wu. With confidence in his course, he can be successful. Leg. Line 4 is dynamic and in the place of a minister next to the ruler in line 5. His having adherence will be injurious to the authority of the supreme ruler, and only sincere loyalty will save him from error and misfortune. Notes and paraphrases. Su. The man acquires followers who flatter, scheme, and act subservient to seek personal gains. There is a chance that he will become dependent on them because of gratifying associations, which will detract from his authority and his position of influence. He must see through such adherence and free himself from egotistical encumbrances. Wing. Those whom you appear to influence actually have ulterior motives in their allegiance to you. Look beyond the current flattering situation into your original principled aim. Strive to act independently. Editor. The line is a clear warning about being corrupted by the projections of others. Viewed objectively, the ego is only a temporary personality created for the purpose of transforming psychic energy, a transitional tool or vessel emanated into matter by the self for one brief lifetime. It is only a servant, never a master. Long dedication to the work can concentrate power which the ego may be tempted to use for its own benefit. A dangerous seduction which can only harm the work. A quote from Guru Gampopa in Precepts of the Gurus. By permitting credulous and vulgar admirers to congregate about thee, there is liability of falling into the error of becoming puffed up with worldly pride. James Dekorne breaks changing line 4 down into 3 possible succinct definitions, A, B, and C. A. Don't let power go to your head. Sincerity prevents ego trips. B. Beware of elements which would distract you from the work. That which seems reasonable is often just the voice of a demon, a temptation for the misuse of power. And C, what worked previously is now obsolete. A new strategy is appropriate. We will now get a randomly card-drawn chapter from the Tao Te Ching to close things off and try and sum this puppy up. So our primary hexagram 17 following had the trigrams of thunder below lake. That's what it was. So thunder was below a lake, and following, it's interesting because the last reading that I did, part of the most inauspiciousness of it all, the changing line, was due to the subject of the reading not being able to follow, and it had the person going on doggedly forward and not in a good way, and the error was due to it, the person not being able to follow anyone else, essentially. So getting following right after that is interesting. Anyway, then the supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all, was 8, accord, and that was earth below water. In this hexagram, the line of the ruler, line 5, which also could be considered the line of the higher self, was the only dynamic line. All of the other lines were magnetic or yin lines, and were essentially subjects of the self. That was interesting to note. So accord, along with following, in the changing lines 1 and 4, the most specific part of the reading, line 1, basically James Dekorne brought it down to change your focus, marshal your forces, and seek wider horizons. What worked before isn't necessarily going to work. A change in direction, maybe, or even how we go about things is not working at this time. And so due to the change in times, there's also a necessity to change our tactics. And line 4, just read it, but it talks about people congregating around, essentially, and that it's important not to become swayed by other people's opinions of us. And that had the idea of someone who was following, but had followers as well, something like that. Like they were, this line 4 is the line of the minister, the subject, the person who is next in line, I suppose, to the ruler line of line 5. And it almost seemed like the followers of the minister were going to detract for some reason. Maybe they were inferior elements, going to detract from the ability of the minister in line 4 to follow the will of the self in line 5. And so the idea was not to become attached to the ideas that other people have about us, which is interesting. I was just talking to Ashley about not even knowing the difference between how you could possibly gauge who you are, knowing, who you've been, and you didn't know who you were then, and you don't know who you are now. And so how do you say anything about it? There's so much change. But even more important, how do you feel like you can take what other people think of you and apply it to yourself and get any kind of truth out of that? And probably would be even more dangerous than following our own idea of ourselves. So just the general vibe of the whole thing feels very much like there's changing times, and that following the will of the self is important, and not being distracted or concerned with various perspectives or ideas of the best course of action other than that of pretty much keeping to the will of the self and making sure that any opinions of us or what should or shouldn't be done doesn't detract from our being able to stay in line with that true chord, to heaven, if you want to call it that. We will read chapter 72 out of the Tao Te Ching to close things off. My copy is from Jia Fufang and Jane English, who were the translators. Chapter 72 of the Tao Te Ching. When men lack a sense of awe, there will be disaster. Do not intrude in their homes. Do not harass them at work. If you do not interfere, they will not weary of you. Therefore the sage knows himself but makes no show, has self-respect but is not arrogant. He lets go of that and chooses this.